Penso que alguém é capaz de ter 2 aparelhos dos que têm os micros ligados. Hã, e portanto, estamos quase preparados para começar. Quando eu projetar, vamos começar, eu só estive a abrir o streaming. Penso que alguém é capaz de ter 2 aparelhos que têm os micros ligados. Portanto, preparados para projetar. Vamos começar, eu só estive a abrir o streaming. Ok, boa noite a todos. Sem mais demoras, eu vou pedir ao médico para fazer uma curta intervenção e apresentar este evento. O que eu peço, entretanto, a todos é para utilizarem o chat ou o bate-papo, depende da vossa instalação estar em inglês ou em português, para poderem colocar todo o tipo de questões que queiram colocar. Américo.
Bom, muito boa noite a todos. Eu vou falar em português, depois obviamente todo o resto será em inglês. Eu penso que o Marco compreende algumas palavras de português, portanto ele não vai ficar muito incomodado comigo por eu estar a falar em português. Bom, agradeço primeiro de tudo ao Marco, à Sofia Terlica e ao Pedro Serrasqueiro por se disponibilizarem para participar neste painel que estamos hoje a efetuar, que sai um bocadinho fora do normal do nosso tipo de atividades, mas decidimos aproveitar esta oportunidade que os nossos convidados nos dão para aprender um pouco sobre o tema que é como medir o tamanho da economia de um país, obviamente na perspectiva da abordagem do Banco Mundial. Para além disso, agradeço ao Nuno Luz e ao Jorge Robal, sendo que o Jorge Robal faz parte da direção da PASC, por dirigirem os trabalhos. Rapidamente, a PASC, no fundo, é uma plataforma de associações. Temos cerca de 60 associados, e desses 60 associados temos feito eventos como este, ou digamos, só a PASC Casa da Cidadania sozinha, ou algumas das vezes em parceria com algumas das nossos associados. Portanto, no fundo, tentamos trabalhar em rede, tentamos dar expressão a questões de interesse nacional e mobilizar também os cidadãos para o exercício da cidadania. Esta semana, por acaso, para além deste evento de hoje, vamos ter a nossa conferência anual, que vai ser na próxima sexta-feira da parte da tarde, para o qual desde já convido todos os presentes. E nós este ano, nesta situação, digamos, muito especial que vivemos todos nós desta nossa vida, uma vida diferente, temos organizado alguns eventos e, concretamente, ao longo deste ano organizamos eventos quer ligados à área do jornalismo, o jornalismo regional e o jornalismo de caráter nacional, como também já organizámos 5 eventos este ano relacionados com a exclusão digital em várias áreas, desde o ensino até jovens em casas de acolhimento, lares, universidades de terceira idade, e ainda este ano, no mês de dezembro, no dia 2 e 16 de dezembro, iremos continuar a trabalhar na inclusão e exclusão digital, no dia 2 sobre o ensino superior e no dia 16 sobre o ensino secundário. As nossas principais causas é a cidadania, o mar, a administração pública e o ordenamento do território. E eu agora, sem mais, iria passar ao Jorge e ao Nuno, que irão dirigir os trabalhos. Desejo uma ótima, vou usar aqui um termo um bocado difícil, uma ótima jornada de trabalho e mais uma vez os meus grandes agradecimentos aos nossos três intervenientes principais, o Marco, a Sofia Terlica e o Pedro Serrasqueiro. Obrigado a todos e até já. Obrigado.
Jorge. Jorge?
Sim. Eu peço que avances. Podes avançar.
Avanças com o tema, não é? És tu que estás a fazer o lançamento do tema.
Eu preferia que tu podes fazê-lo. Mas eu faço.
Muito bem.
Eu faço, deixa estar. Olá, outra vez. Hoje vamos... Estou sim? Estão-me a ouvir?
Estou a ouvir bem.
Pronto. Hoje o tema é um tema um pouco fora do normal para a PASC. Não é uma causa social. É sobre o Programa de Comparação Internacional, que é um programa do Banco Mundial. Tivemos a oportunidade de ter connosco o Marco Rissanen, que logo de seguida o Nuno irá apresentar e que irá clarificar, explicar-nos, tirar-nos todas as dúvidas que nós tivermos sobre como é que o Banco Mundial compara a riqueza entre cada país, ou de cada país. Neste caso, o título é bem elucidativo, como é que calculam o tamanho da riqueza de cada um dos países. Eu não vou alongar mais, o próprio Marco, que é o nosso especialista, irá apresentar e eu vou passar então ao Nuno para fazer a apresentação do Marco. Eu não vou alongar mais, o próprio Marco, que é o nosso especialista, irá apresentar e eu vou passar então ao Nuno para fazer a apresentação. Nuno, estás sem som, Nuno?
Okay. Sorry, I'll restart. So Marco Olavi Rissanen, I hope I'm not butchering your name. So Marco is a Master of Social Sciences with specialization in economics and sociology. He has been since 2013 at the World Bank. He is currently a senior statistician and ICP team lead in Washington, D.C. Marco is going to talk to us about what is the International Comparison Program, the ICP, what are purchasing power parities, PPPs, how are PPPs estimated, and selected ICP results and PPP uses. So Marco, over to you now. Since 2013 at the World Bank, he is currently a senior statistician and ICP team lead in Washington, D.C. Marco is going to talk to us about what is the International Comparison Program, the ICP, what are purchasing power parities, PPPs.
Good evening. I'm hearing a little bit of echo here. Is it fine to start now?
Selected ICP results and PPP uses. So Marco, over to you now. George, I think I introduced Marco, and then I heard my introduction with some delay. Are you hearing me in real time?
I'm hearing a little bit echo here. Fine, start now.
Isto não está bem.
No, I believe we're hearing you in real time. Good evening.
But
We're in real time, but since you're the only one who has the microphone on, maybe the feedback is coming from you. I don't know, it's just a hypothesis. So maybe if you mute, maybe if you try and mute your mic, everything, then let's see.
I think I just muted it now.
Okay, I'm gonna do the same. Thank you. Marco, this would be your cue.
Thank you. Are you able to hear me now?
Very well.
Great. And you also able to see the slides, the presentation?
I think yes, we're viewing your screen. That's the information. Yes, we're able to see your screen.
Excellent. Thank you. So Nuna, you didn't butcher my name at all. It was very well pronounced, actually. So well done. So so today's topic would be the ICP and PPPs, and it's 9 p.m. in Portugal, so it's quite late. It's a little bit perhaps heavy topic to discuss at this hour, but I'll try to make it as light as possible. So I have a set of slides first here, and then I think we will have a lot of time to discuss and have a Q&A session after the presentation. So with this first set of slides, I'm first going to introduce the ICP, what the ICP is about overall, and then we're going to discuss about what the PPPs are, and then going on how the PPPs are being estimated, and then selected ICP results and PPP uses. And I was trying to find a couple of Portugal related points and results that we can discuss, and hopefully you find them interesting. So to start off, what is the ICP, first of all? So the ICP is a worldwide statistical initiative. It's currently led by the World Bank. So the World Bank is the overall coordinator for the ICP, and we are working under the umbrella of United Nations Statistical Commission. So we report to the UNSC. That's our main stakeholder. And the main purpose for the whole program is to produce something that is being called PPPs, and we'll get back to this in the next slide. So that's the main objective for the program. And to date, we have had 9 ICP comparisons or comparison rounds that have been concluded. The whole program started as at 1917s. With 10 participating countries, and then slowly the participation went up, and then the 2011 round of ICP had 199 participating countries, and the 2017 round of ICP, which was the most recent round of ICP, had 176 participants. The next round of ICP is going to be at 2021, and that will be the 10th round of ICP. And actually, this was supposed to be a 2020 round of ICP, but because of the global pandemic, we had to postpone the comparison one year for 21. And now it's fingers crossed that we are able to do this next year. So as we will learn later on, we have to be able to collect information, including the price information. And if price collectors throughout the world are not able to go to the stores to obtain the information, that is a big challenge for us. So fingers crossed that the next year will be much better than what we had this year. So overall, ICP is conducted as a global partnership of countries, agencies, and academia. And here is our partnership and governance structure as an highlight on overview. So on the top, we have the UNSC, the United Nations Statistical Commission, which is the ultimate stakeholder, and we report to UN every year. One below that is the ICP Governing Board. The Governing Board is currently being chaired by the chief statisticians of Statistics Austria and Statistics India. And then on the right-hand side, we have a technical advisory group. And this group is currently being chaired by Sir Agnes Deaton, which is the 2015 Nobel Prize winner. So we have very high level support for this program and an intellectual insights, whatever we are doing. So the World Bank is the global coordinator for the whole program. And then for each region, so we are basically covering most of the countries in the world. And we are dividing the world to the regions that we call them. And each region is being headed by either a development agency or UN agency, or in case of this region, Eurostat and OECD. So together with the World Bank, the regional agencies and the IMF, we form the interagency coordination group. And then below that, we have the national implementing agencies who are actually collecting all the information. And most of cases, these are the statistical offices, so national statistical institutes. But in some cases, they are also central banks or whatever agencies that are producing official statistics in given countries. So this is the overall of the governance structure. And overall, as mentioned, we do cover almost the whole globe. So we have around 200 countries participating, and that's like 99% of the whole population in the globe. So basically, we are in touch with everyone, and that's of course a challenge for the coordination because everyone is coming with their own statistical systems, and there is lots of coordination to get everything going. So that's the ICP, and then the burning question: what are the PPPs then that the ICP is producing? So again, it's a late hour, but so as a very brief explanation, PPPs are a currency conversion factors, and at the same time they are special price indices. And what this means that you can use the PPPs as you would be using exchange rates. So you have exchange rates from dollars to pounds or euros to dollars. It's worked in the same way. But the key difference is that while they are doing the conversion from a currency to another, they also control for the price differences between the economies. And this is the key point that we'll look at later on. And PPPs are mainly being used to convert GDP of different countries to a common currency. And in addition to this, you can also use the PPPs to estimate or indicate the country's price levels, saying on average, is Spain more expensive than Portugal or vice versa. And now that we know that the PPPs are basically like exchange rates, they are converting currencies from one to another, the question is that why do we need them? And the challenge here is that if you would be using only market exchange rates, the problem is with the market exchange rate is that they fluctuate a lot. So you might have something today and you might have something complete next day, and then we are trying to see like what is the actual size of a given economy. It's very difficult because they vary every day. And the second challenge is that the price levels between the countries, especially the developing countries and the high-income countries, vary a lot. So these are the two key reasons why we need to have PPPs. And just give an example on the first one, the market exchange rates. So here's an example of Turkish lira versus the dollar, the US dollar. So just in 5 years, the dollar, the exchange rate used to be something like 3.3 something, and right now it's 0.13, meaning that if you would use exchange rates and you would think that the Turkish economy, the GDP, is something, and then goes 5 years, most likely the economy has been growing, but exchange rate has been doing something else. And if you would be only using exchange rate, you wouldn't really know how large is the Turkish economy or GDP as a whole. So that's one example. And as you might recall, there is some currencies that are more constant, but there is many that are very not constant. So for example, Russian currency has seen some significant movements. And if you try to see how large is the Russian economy actually, you really can't rely on exchange rates to get a real estimate. And the second problem that I referred to is the price levels. So the general theory, the economic theory that is called, that can be referred as a Penn effect or a Palassa-Samuelson effect, is that when economies go richer, normally the price levels go up as well. So in this graph, don't focus on the actual numbers too much at the moment, but just to give you an idea. So this is giving you a price levels. So the higher the countries on y-axis, the more expensive it is. So for example, the highest one in these slides are Switzerland and Norway. So their price levels are almost double to what the world average is. And then when you move on the x-axis, you have the income. So when the countries become richer, they move on the scale right-hand side, and at the same time they go up on the price levels. They become richer. And Portugal is there indicated. You're in this slide, you're a little bit higher than the world average, but not anywhere close to Switzerland or Norway. So that's the Penn effect or Palassa-Samuelson effect. And again, why this matters is that when the World Bank or whoever who is trying to estimate the real size of the economies, if they use the exchange rates and they just convert the GDP to a common currency using the exchange rate, they would think that the higher income economies like Switzerland, like Norway, are really large because their price levels are so high. And at the same time, when you're looking at the more poor countries whose price levels are much lower, you would think that they are really tiny and their total size of the economy is very small. So what PPPs do is that they try to fix that price level impact. So in addition to converting currencies to the same currency, they also stabilize or get rid of this price level difference, meaning that they make all the countries or all the exchange rates equal in terms of their purchasing power, and by doing so, you can actually see what is the real size of the economies, abandoning the impact of the price levels. So that's the whole reason why we have to have PPPs and why we cannot rely on purely on exchange rates. And then how we are calculating the PPPs, how we are estimating the PPPs. There's 3 buckets of information that we must have. The first one and the most important one is price information. So when we do an ICP round or ICP comparison, we are basically collecting lots of information on prices. So in this slide, we are covering all the components for which we are collecting prices. So you have household consumption, you have housing, private education, government salaries basically, and then investment. So in all these categories, we are trying to obtain price information. How much like bag of rice costs in all countries in the world? How much is cost to have a studio rented? Or how much the government employees are getting paid when they work in specific occupations, or how much it costs to buy a truck for your firm or build a house. So for all of these things, we have to collect price information in order to know how much things cost in particular country. And in total, we have something like 1,000 items in our item list. So when we do the round, ICP round, we establish these price lists, and then we allocate those price lists to our regional partners who then ask the national partners to start collecting prices on all these items, and that is the bulk of the work we are doing. And then the second bucket of information we need is the weights. So once we collect prices for all this information, we need to know how much each of the price information should be weighted in order to get a real estimate for the price levels for a given country. So again, for the rice, we need to know how much rice actually is weighted on GDP, how much the trucks and flight tickets and so forth are weighted, so that we can get the real estimate on the price level for a given country. And then for the last bucket, we also need to have population information, what's the total population in the country, and the market exchange rates. And for the national account expenditures, as mentioned here, we are breaking down the GDP into 155 units, which we call basic headings. And the next slide is giving you an idea how that looks like. So GDP in this chart, GDP is in the middle. And when we start doing slicing slowly, we start with 6 main aggregates. So we have the household consumption, what the household consume. Then we have the investment. Then we have the government slide, and so forth. And then when we go to the very lowest detail, we have those 155 basic headings. And that basically covers the whole GDP of a given country. And there is a link in this slide if you want to try. There's a link to one of the blogs we made, and this graph is interactive, so you can see how food or meat has been broken down to the small units that we are using in the PPP estimation. And then I think this is the heaviest topic for slide for today. So in a simplest form, if you just want to imagine what the PPP is, it's just a ratio of a price for some product. In here we are using Big Mac Index because Big Mac Index is something that the Economist is using, so they're pretty famous for that. So basically, The Economist, the magazine, is collecting prices on Big Macs all over the world. So you take the Big Mac price in Portugal, which, if I got it right, it's just below $5. The Big Mac in US is just below $4. And then if you take a ratio of these two currencies, these two prices, you get a number of 1.25. And if our whole ICP comparison would be only consisting on this one item, 1.25 would be the PPP for Portugal versus US. Of course, our basket, as mentioned, we have 1,000 item, 1,000 item. So we are not only collecting Big Mac, we collect lots more. But that's the idea. So you have 1,000 item, you always take these ratios, you weight them as per the actual weight in the basket, and then you get a PPP or price level for a given country. And PPPs are estimated in 2 stages. First, all the regions. So again, as mentioned, Eurostat OECD is the region for Portugal. First, Eurostat estimates the PPPs for this region, and then what the Global Office or the World Bank is doing is bringing all these regional estimates together in order to get a PPPs and price level indices for the entire world. So for the state 1, which is the regional PPPs, you take those Big Macs or meats or whatever items, you calculate the PPPs, and then secondly, you aggregate those PPPs with the weights on the basket. So to just give you an example, here's one heading, meat. So for meat, for example, we are having price level indices and PPPs for meat. So in this case, we have 5 basic headings. We are covering pork, poultry, lamb, and so forth. And we are collecting prices for 26 items. So these items are really the ones that if you would walk to a supermarket, you would get a chicken and you would get the pork and so forth. So we are doing the same thing for for all of these basic headings. So in total, you have 26. You aggregate those 26 to get the basic headings, and then you weight them to get a price level for meat. And the neat thing with this weighting structure is that if there is a country, let's say an Islamic country, who don't consume pork, we are not wrongly estimating the price level for that country, because the weight basically is close to zero. Even if you would be able to obtain some prices for pork, perhaps for foreigners, the weight is almost zero. So when we estimate the price level for meat for these countries, the pork is not carrying any weight, and hence the price level is correctly estimated. Right. And then what we do at the global level is we take these regional estimates, so Portugal estimates, Hong Kong estimates, South Africa estimates, and we link all these estimates so that we can have one set of PPPs which have a common base country, and everyone is able to use these PPPs or PPP exchange rates throughout the world. There's few key ICP PPP characteristics listed here. Perhaps the most important one is the base country invariance. So our PPPs are US equal 1, but that doesn't have any impact on the results. It could be as well Portugal equals 1 or whatever country. It doesn't impact the results itself. So it's base country invariance, which is very important. Perhaps the second most important is the fixity, which is the last one here, which means that whenever Eurostat or OECD is publishing PPPs, and the World Bank is publishing their own PPPs, the relationship between the countries is not changing. So even if you might have different numbers there, when you compare Spain to Portugal in World Bank estimates, and then in the Eurostat estimates, the relationship between Portugal and Spain remains the same. Right. Okay. So that's the heavy part. You made it. I hope you are all still awake. And then next session will be selected ICP results and PPP uses. So the first graph I have here is the main results from the 2017 ICP cycle. So the box or the area you see here is the actual total world economy. So if you take all the countries that participate in the ICP, at the moment it's 175 economies. So that's basically the whole, like 99.9 something percent of the world economy. And you divide that pie, the whole GDP pie, to different portions based on where the countries are from. So in here, we are using the World Bank classification. So we have regions like East Asia and Pacific. We have Sub-Saharan Africa. We have Europe and Central Asia and so forth. So it's all colored differently. So again, the whole area is the total world economy. And then the area here indicated is the actual share of that particular region in the world, from the world total. So the largest blocks at the moment are East Asia and Pacific and North America. And this was the first time ever we actually, the World Bank announced that China is actually a larger economy than the US. So again, if you just use the exchange rates, you will not get this result. But because the price levels in China are lower than in US, you have to take into account that impact. And when you take into account the price level differences between China and US, you actually realize that China is the bigger economy. It's only slightly here, but still it's the first time we are announcing this. And with the current growth rates from China, this trend will just be magnified going further. So East Asia Pacific is the biggest one, North America is the second one, and third largest is the Europe. So this is basically the EU plus surrounding Central Asian states. And in here, I'm highlighting Portugal. So Portugal is the 50th largest economy in the world. And at the moment, your PPP-based GDP is $341 billion, and that accounts 0.3% of the total world economy, in which China is having a share of 16.4. So this is the main finding of the most recent ICP cycle. But that's not the whole story, because again, there is lots more people in China than there is in Portugal or somewhere else. So when you divide that GDP to a different, based on the population in each country, you get this map. So so the pie, even if it's a big pie, if you have many dividers, it's not enough for everyone. So hence you will see that US, despite of being the second in total size for GDP, still the income per capita per person living in the US is higher than in China. But nevertheless, China is catching up. And this graph, the next one shows it clearly. So this graph shows how the GDP of this region has grown from 2000 to today, basically. And the main driver of the GDP growth, the total world GDP growth, have been happening in East Asia and Pacific, and that's mainly led by the growth in China. But still, even in Africa, you can see the sub-Saharan African GDP, total GDP has also grown. So overall, it's going up. But China is the biggest player in this picture overall. And perhaps again, a little bit difficult to see in a slide, but this is the same graph I shared earlier on the price levels. So the higher you go in this graph, the y-axis, the more expensive the countries are. So again, the Switzerland's, Luxembourg's, Germany's, and so forth are higher than the average, the world price level. And then in the x-axis, you see how rich people are. And I try to find the bubble, and the bubble size shows you the total size of the economy. So Portugal, I think, is in a good spot, because your price level is fairly, it's quite fine. So its price level for Portugal is lower than the world average, so just slightly lower, but nevertheless it's lower than the world average. But nevertheless, you are beyond the average income per capita, meaning GDP divided by the number of population. So I think this is a good slot to be in. And then if you zoom in, this is a graph for Europe and Central Asia. This is showing price level indices. So again, the price level for the world is 100, and then we are comparing where different countries are in this scale. So if you go to the very right-hand side, you have countries like Iceland, Norway, and Switzerland, who are having price levels almost double to what the world average is. So again, if you're a tourist, you go there, you want to have a hotel room or a meal or a beer, you're going to end up paying double what the world average would be. And then when you go on the lower hand side, you have countries like Ukraine, Azerbaijan, Moldova, and so forth, which are having the price levels around the world, like 50% of the world average. And as mentioned, the Portugal is just below the world average. I think is quite, it's a good result in a way that people don't find that overall coming to Portugal, you would think that the price level is more or less around the same area that the world average is. And if you take the ranking, the rank for Portugal is 20. So we have 47 countries. Portugal is ranking 20 on this level. And I highlighted Spain, which is currently 16th. So if you would go to Spain, most likely you would find that the price level is slightly higher than Portugal. Not much, but still. a little bit more expensive. And then if you see the same graph for the GDP per capita, so you take the GDP, you divide GDP-based PPP-based GDP, and you have a per capita estimate. You have 33.1K per each citizen in Portugal, which is ranking at 22. And you have those two countries on the right-hand side, Luxembourg and Ireland. And the reason for these like huge spikes is that in Luxembourg, the actual population living in Luxembourg is not the whole population, because there's so many overall. The Luxembourg is a very small country, and there is many firms, banks, especially, and then people thrive. They basically live around Luxembourg, but they work in Luxembourg, and hence they increase the GDP of Luxembourg, but they don't actually account as the Luxembourg citizens, and hence you have this very, very high GDP per capita. For Ireland, it's a little bit different story, because they have very good entrepreneur regulations at the moment. So many internet companies prefer to stay register in Ireland in order to get the benefit of these regulations. Yeah. Okay, so that's for the results. So just a couple of uses and applications of results. So I'm listing here a few highlights. So the United Nations is using PPPs in their Sustainable Development Goals. The World Bank is using PPPs in their estimates on the extreme poverty and how many poor people there is in the world. The World Economic Forum is using PPPs. The ILO is using PPPs, and so forth. And then IMF is using PPPs as well, OECD, European Union, and then World Bank and IMF together. And the ICP website, if you're interested, tracks all the uses of ICP and PPPs in reports, papers, and articles and blogs. So we update the uses every week. So it's basically a very updated situation that you see. And just to highlight a couple of those that I listed, here is the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. These are all the goals that are currently using PPPs, and there are quite a few. So yeah, PPPs feed into the estimation on where the world stands in terms of SDGs. This is an example of the poverty rates. So again, the World Bank is the institution that estimates how many poor people there is in the world, and you have different thresholds. So the extreme poverty, so that's the threshold that you can barely survive, is $1.9 per day, PPP terms. And as you can see, that extreme poverty trend has been downwards, luckily. So less and less people have been extremely poor in the world. Unfortunately, though, this trend with the current results will go upward from 2019, 2020 onwards because of the COVID epidemic. But just before that, we were doing quite well as a globe. Human Development Index is one reuse of PPPs, as mentioned. And in this map, you can see the regions that have high human development and which have less. And again, the PPPs are being used to make these estimates. And then perhaps what is of particular interest here is the EU uses. So as mentioned, the EU is also using PPPs to estimate the kind of GDP per capita. And whenever it's less than 90% of the average of the EU, those countries will benefit from the EU cohesion fund funding. And I think Portugal is one of those countries in the past who has been benefiting from these funds, and they are based on the PPP-based estimates. And then for IMF, it's kind of the same story. So when IMF decides what's the quota for each country, how much each quarter each country has to chip in and how much they're able to withdraw. And those numbers are being estimated based on the PPPs, and the same applies for the World Bank as well. And then lastly, this slide gives you the links to the ICP website, to our most recent report from 2017, press releases in Portuguese and English, and then ICP highlights, facts, and frequently asks questions. And with that, I hope you didn't fall asleep at this late hour. Thank you so much for listening.
Muito bem, thank you. Thank you very much, Marco. We are now going to invite Sofia Terlica's comments. So Sofia has a PhD in economics, and she is the advisor to the Minister of Territorial Cohesion. She was before a technical specialist at the Ministry of Finance. So Sofia, what would be your comment and to Marco's presentation?
Hello, thank you for the introduction, Marco and Nuno, for the introduction. I would like to ask Marco and to challenge him for a small point here. I think PPP is extremely important and is undeniable that its importance to capture the real economic size of all countries and to compare countries. But we also know that the PPP are made by a country average of the prices, so we don't have actually an indicator within the economy and the price level within the economy. And as what I've read about the PPP, this methodology is extremely powerful to make these comparisons. And I would think, but I would also want to hear Marco's opinion. Why not using this for regional comparisons within a country, taking into account that this is one of the most powerful or the most powerful methodology for making this economic size of countries or regions. That's my first comment. If I have time to make a second and quick question,
Please do.
Okay, thank you, Nuno. My second question relates to the COVID-19 pandemic we are going through. And how is the ICP dealing with the trade-off of going on with the project and not delaying the statistics and making these statistics available for all of us, and the need for waiting more time to observe the structural changes that consumers are going through. So I think there's here a trade-off that I'm wondering how is the ICP dealing with. So because if you were starting doing the service now as you did before, you would probably you will probably see overreaction at the pandemic burst here, and you will have some results that would not be sustainable or would not reflect the structural changes of the consumers' habits and patterns. So these were the two main and more immediate questions I would have. Don't want to take more time to the others to ask questions. Thank you, Marco, and thank you, Nuno.
Marco, you wanna reply to Sophia, answer Sophia's questions now?
Yes, I'll try, and clearly Sophie was not sleeping, so 8 hours of good economic questions. So first of all, for the kind of situation within the countries. So yeah, so PPPs are mainly being used to compare countries against other countries. So again, what's the price level difference between Spain and how it's in Portugal? And because we rely on the national statistical offices, they are the ones that are responsible of getting an average price and average prices in total to reflect an average price for that particular item in that particular country. So again, if you take this simple example of rice, the statistical office of Portugal is responsible of getting the average price for rice right for Portugal. This being said, we are encouraging the statistical offices and the countries in general to try to estimate the price levels within the country. So there's many countries to which price levels within the country doesn't really vary a lot. So again, if you take an example of Luxembourg, it's so small that perhaps there is a differences in rental prices and the prices of flats and houses. But when it comes to groceries or whatever you buy from supermarkets, there's practically no difference. But then again, there is countries like Brazil or some other countries which are basically countries within the countries. And in those cases, yes, it's very difficult to obtain the actual representative price level and average price for a particular country, particular item in that country. And again, on that, we leverage on the expertise and knowledge of the statistical offices, which in any case are doing surveys for different indicators related to prices like the consumer price indices or CPIs. So so they should, like, if they collect prices for ICP only in couple of locations, they should be able to then apply factors to make those prices that perhaps have been collected in capital cities to make more representative for the whole country. So that's the responsibility of the countries to provide first to the regional agencies and then to us at the World Bank a representative national annual averages for each item collected. But that's really a key point, especially for the big countries. And then for the COVID impact, yeah, this has been yeah, and then, like, being completely honest, we haven't resolved this topic yet. So as mentioned, we were hoping to have the next cycle 2020, but then we realized that it's not possible and we have to postpone to 21. And now we are facing two different problems. One is the prices itself. So the prices for certain goods and services is varying a lot. So if you're trying to get estimates for hotels or flights right now, it will be very different from a normal benchmark year. Typically, the prices for hotels would go down because there's almost no demand, or at least there's less demand, and that puts the prices down. And then you would also expect that the weights that we use to weight the PPPs would also reflect this change, meaning that the national statistical offices again would be able to estimate that, hey, okay, the prices for hotels have been going down, but at the time there has been no demand, and hence the expenditures that we obtain are less for these items, meaning that the PPPs would not be impacted as much because the weight for hotels would be going down. But all this, it's really a challenge, I think, for the whole statistical system in the world. Like, first of all, how to reflect situations that change very fast, because we were able to, like, for example, when you validate the information, you are able to use something that you have had in the past and say that, okay, it seems that this is reasonable versus what you had in the past. If the whole reality is completely different, it's harder to assess if it's right or wrong. So that's one problem. And the second is that even if we would be able to say if it's right or wrong, is it really reflecting what is happening in the economy? So yes, this will be a big trial for us and the statistical system overall. At least what each of the National Statistical Office is doing at the moment is trying to find ways to obtain more information. So I think you might have realized that many statistical offices have started thinking that, hey, if we cannot send price collectors to the stores, is there a private sector information, or is there online prices or web scraping or crowdsourcing that we could use to get the information to be able to keep providing the statistics for the countries that the central banks and the governments need to make a good decisions where to go next.
Okay, Marco, thanks very much thank you very much for your answer. We now move to Pedro Serrasqueiro's comment. So Pedro Serrasqueiro is a statistics teacher at ISCTE. He's also an investment consultant. Pedro, what can you say? What is your comment about Marco's presentation?
Hello, thank you, Nuno. Thank you, Marco, for the presentation. Very informative. Also, thank you to Jorge and Americo for inviting us here. My comments also coming in the form of a couple of questions, so literally two questions, and one's very similar to the one Sophia asked, maybe just add a little more detail in there, but I'll leave that for second. I couldn't help notice, Marco, that you mentioned the price of a Big Mac somewhere along the presentation, and obviously the PPPs seem to be the gold standard for country comparison, but it's also well known. It's like the Big Mac index that the Economist usually puts together is very, very famous. It also comes in I think every textbook, and basically we can look at a Big Mac, so the actual burger, we can look at it as a basket of goods. So it has I think it's just bread, meat, lettuce, whatever else is in there. Nobody really knows, right? But it's a basket of goods. It never changes. Of course, it's a much less detailed basket of goods than the ones that you're putting together at the ICP. So, so although the PPPs on the one hand are the gold standard for country comparisons when it comes to the production or generation of wealth, the Big Mac index also attracts a lot of attention for maybe the same purpose. And so what I would like to ask you is there is seemingly there's a trade-off between the stability of the index or of the exchange rate a long time if you have a smaller and fixed basket of goods. So there's a trade-off between the stability of that rate and the amount of information that you have inside. So if you have less information, the index is more stable. If you have more information, maybe that's less stable, but it's much richer in terms of information. So maybe could you comment on what these on this trade-off, and when is it useful to look at one type of index, and when is it useful to look at the other type? And so that is my first question. And the second question, also related to COVID-19, is just picking up on Sophia's question, is the following. Supposedly consumer preferences are are changing with COVID. We don't know if it's going to be, if they are going to be changed forever or not. And so what I would like to ask you, and if so, is because consumer preferences, I assume are going to have implications on the weights you put on things when you compute the PPPs. Are you looking at any specific consumer preferences that are going to be altered forever, or maybe it's been things have been such a mess globally up until now that you've not gone into that specifically? But if there are specific consumer preferences that you're looking at that will possibly be permanently altered. Yeah, so those are my two questions. Thank you very much.
Marco, you want to answer Pedro's questions?
Yes. So again, continuing on the topic of late hour, very good questions. It seems to be ongoing. So very good topics. So for the Big Mac index. So first of all, it's a textbook example, and many seems to be funny about it, but still it actually is a good index. So first of all, you think it's just the food. You think it's just the measuring the PPPs based on the hamburger you're consuming, but actually it's everything added to the food. So you have the establishment, you have the McDonald's in particular country. You have to pay the rent for that. You have to have the chefs and the staff working at McDonald's, meaning that you have to have labor rates. Then you have to have the ingredients, meaning the actual food items. So all that, it's kind of a micro cosmos of everything we are trying to measure. So it's, even if it's lighthearted, how the economists always said it's still it's quite attractive example on how you can use just single item to reference something that we are trying to achieve. Now the challenge come here is that the McDonald's, first of all, it might be I think you mentioned that no one consumes it. So in the US, yes, lots of people do consume it, but then if you go to India or somewhere else, yes, people do consume it, but it's not anymore the same item. So when you're trying to get the actual price level for country, you cannot go to items that you can easily identify. So again, if you make your PPP index or price level index based on iPhones or something that everyone knows, that's fine. But still, is that really the whole basket that the citizens in that particular country are consuming? Perhaps not. So hence we are trying to for each country to have that basket of goods and services that they actually are actually consuming. So again, for the World Bank staff, like the World Bank has offices in most of the countries, and they might bring their own consumption habits to that country. So again, if you are an Apple user, you want to have the latest iPhone, you go in some African country to the Apple store or whoever is selling the latest iPhones, and you can obtain that price, but it's not the price level that the usual consumer would face in that country, because it's an expat price level, and that might be very high versus what the actual price level is for certain items. So yeah, it's attractive, and the benefit is that you can easily obtain it. Everyone see it. There is no doubt. There is nothing fishy about it, and also you can update it on like monthly or weekly or even daily basis. So it's very attractive, but still it's just one item, and unfortunately we don't have that golden item that would really reflect everything that is happening and what is being consumed in the throughout the world. But still, I don't want to undermine the importance of that index. And then for the COVID-19 and how it will in the end impact the kind of the microeconomics, and then like what will happen to the consumption basket in the end. Yeah, that's again, it is a very good question. The only benefit that ICP is that we don't have to worry about the what choice each individual consumer is making, because we are obtaining the national account expenditures from the national accounts systems in each country, meaning that they are actually calculating the volumes for each category. So it's not that perhaps people think that they don't have to travel anymore. Perhaps they think that they don't need to have flight tickets anymore. And we are guessing that this is the next consumer habit. We don't have to worry about the actual trend, because we can obtain that from the statistics itself, meaning just saying how many flights there was, what was the price, what was the total volume for this sector as a whole, and hence we kind of have the real truth. But again, the question here is that we are relying on the national statistical offices and their statistics, and if they are not able to trend this trend as it's happening, then we're in trouble. But yeah, but basically we should be weighting the flight tickets in the right way, because the statistical offices should be getting the information from the Lufthansa's and top protocols and so forth in order to make the estimates for actual consumption expenditure on flight tickets in Portugal for any given year, COVID year or non-COVID year.
I understand. Thank you very much.
Okay. Sophia and Pedro, you both asked questions instead of making a comment on Marco's presentation. Can I ask you both, starting with Sophia, if you could make a broader comment about the presentation? Sophia, if it's okay with you, I'll start with you again.
Okay, no. I will try to do some introduction, although I think Marco's presentation was clear enough for everyone. He has covered the main topics on PPPs, and he's the expert. I would not add much more. In fact, my comments were related, and I've been using for the PPPs and ICP as a macroeconomics, and I'm using it as a user. I'm not working it as statistician. And I think it's some of the results he highlighted here were amazing, like China coming to be one of the biggest economy is something that I would certainly not forget. And the importance of when we take into account the per capita levels, we see that the variance of the ranking in the countries are quite different. And actually, we know that per capita counts more than price levels in variation. And Marco also highlighted that point, and I think it's one of the results I also read from the ICP results 2017, the published report. Well, but my comment is my main questions are in terms of the debate that we had started now with Marco. I would also have other questions or particular curiosities that I would like to hear Marco, but probably they are more technical. For instance, I have one question in my mind that which is related to the PPP methodology and the informal economy that we know that is not measured, and how much is that? Is it possible to measure the informal economy and the error that it might be causing to the comparison? But well, I will stop here. Sorry if my sound is not very perfect.
We hear you perfectly, Sofia. Pedro, if you allow me just to interject here, just to see if Marco has some information about the informal economy that Sofia was talking about.
Yes, yes, still here. So yeah, continuing on the topic of good questions. So informal economy is it is a challenge. Yeah. So yes and no. We are taking into account in some ways. So when we are asking the countries to collect prices, we are not saying that don't take illegal prices into account. So we are not saying that if you're consuming cigarettes in your country and 90% of the cigarettes are not legal, we're not saying that don't collect those legal cigarettes. So in a way, the price level reflects that. But then there is a question if the weights are reflecting that. So again, if you're a country of heavy smokers, and most of them are illegal cigarettes, and then the rule in the national accounts is that you don't take into account illegal expenditures, meaning that even if you know that people are smoking and all of them are doing it, they're buying illegal Marlboros, and then by the rule of the book you are saying that it's illegal, you're not capturing it, then we are in trouble. Yes. Yes.
Marco, we are not hearing you very well. I think you have some sort of sound problem.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Now it's okay. Now I think it's okay now. You want to try?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So the challenge is, let me repeat. The challenge is that we are relying on the national offices to capture the price levels rightly. So if a consumption for cigarettes or whatever consumption that might have some portions that are illegal are not being captured, that's a problem, because again, if you go to the store and you want to have Marlboro cigarettes, it costs a lot, but no one is actually getting the official Marlboro ones. They're getting something that is not Marlboro, but and also lots of cheaper. Then we are not capturing the actual price level right. But as I mentioned, we are not saying that don't capture the illegal economy. You may capture that if that's the main way of consuming cigarettes in a country. But then the second problem is the weights. So again, if everyone smokes in a country, but it's not it's not legal smoking, then perhaps the national accounts don't capture this smoking, and then your weights are lower. So yes, that's a challenge. But yeah, but still, it's I think it's more at least for Europe. I'm not sure if it's a problem per se, but it's more challenging for developing countries for sure. And aside of smoking itself, it's all the also the salaries. So we have construction in our we have construction items, and if many of the construction staff is not really registered construction staff, and they are doing something semi-illegal, yeah, that's a challenge for us as well, because we want to be in the realm of official statistics, and this gray area, this the one is mentioned, is a little bit of a challenge. Yes.
Okay, Marco, thank you very much for your reply. Pedro, I'll pass the ball over to you if you want to make a broader comment to Marco's original presentation.
I'll make a broader and brief comment. So the first thing I want to say, Marco, is this must be. I can only imagine the complexity of this exercise at a global scale. So I want to humbly congratulate you for being part of it. This is most likely you'll have a lot of headaches, I assume, or like knots to untie, and yeah. So congratulations for that. The second thing I wanted to mention is. It's just for you to hear viva voce. I'm sure you know this already, but people are actually relying on these measures. Up until earlier this year, I was doing some financial and economic advisory at the parliament for a political party, and I relied heavily on measurements of GDP and PVP adjusted, obviously, also purchasing power standards adjusted, and so just for you to hear viva voce that I was an end user of your work, and it was fundamental. Regarding the contents of the presentation itself, overall, I think what you've presented basically corroborates the importance of leveling the price levels of countries for us to be able to compare the standards of living. I know it's another discussion to know if GDP is actually a good measure, or GDP per capita is a good measure of the standard of living. Obviously, that depends on the concentration of wealth in a country. But overall, I think you corroborated well the importance of what's going on here. Of course, this is your job, so how couldn't you? On the other hand, and this was I had a general notion on a European scale, but not on a global scale. With this charts you presented with this matrices, maybe if you will, I'm relatively sad to see Portugal with such a low GDP per capita. I'm a strong believer in this little nation of ours, and so it was informative to see where Portugal is positioned, and just on the one hand, it's good that we are, in terms of GDP per capita, above most of the rest of the world. I believe you mentioned it. We are the 50th largest economy in the world, but then again, it's around, I think it's 200 countries in the world, or between 200 and 300. So that's where we rank, and and I will conclude with my hopes for the future that we can go onwards and upwards from here.
Okay. Thank you very much, Pedro. I have another question here, both for Sofia and for Pedro. So I'll keep you on, and it's about is this topic studied sufficiently in the Portuguese academia, in the Portuguese universities, and also if there's conclusions about these studies about these topics in the Portuguese universities. Is Parliament giving it sufficient attention? Is the legislative power and Portuguese legislators giving it sufficient attention? Sophia, can I start with you again?
Yes, thank you, Nuno. Well, on the academic side, I think Pedro will be a wiser man to answer this question. But
Okay.
in terms of the legislators, and I would understand that as a more political sphere, I think it's macroeconomics is not the main subject for politicians, probably.
Yeah.
In that sense, this would not ever be the main topic, of course, but as long as we look at macroeconomics and evolutions and comparison between not so much international comparisons, but it's widely spread to make comparisons between European countries. I think this has been a topic, and I remember before last elections that there was a high debate among the two main parties, looking at the evolutions of GDP in Portugal and its comparison between the other European countries or just the Euro area countries. And depending on the comparison, Portugal would be benefiting the general GDP growth. So I would say that in that sense, PPP is quite important, and it had been in previous debates in the public in the political sphere. I would also argue that probably is not widely understandable, the concept of PPP. So more statistical literacy in the general society would be very helpful, of course, and would not be that's undeniable. I think that's completely my opinion, but it had been on the debate, yes, especially comparing growth rates and comparing countries in the Europe or Euro area standards.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sophia. Pedro, you the same question to you. Is this studied enough in Portuguese universities, these topics, and also public policies? Does this have any impact in public policies in Portugal?
Yeah. The academic. So PPP is on the academic side. Definitely. So purchasing power parity is basically an economic theory, and it's I think if we have to narrow it down to a sentence, it's it's the well known and very old now. I think this is Rogoff, if I'm not mistaken, from my initial economic study. So pardon me, all of you that are specialists in economics, if this is a blunder, but I think it's Ken Rogoff, that came up with this purchasing power parity idea that basically it's the law of one price. That if you eliminate the currency effect, then the prices of all goods should be the same everywhere. And so I studied this. Students still do this. Thank you for the encouragement, Marco. And so definitely this is something we study. I don't recall. So I recall the Big Mac Index, unfortunately, and this is just maybe a slight joke also. But I recall the Big Mac Index. I don't remember hearing about the ICP. So this is back in my original study. So my area of interest in statistics more directed towards financial, more financial area. But so I definitely recall learning about these things, and I think so yes, the short answer is yes, definitely these things are studied, and they're a very big part of textbooks actually. As far as the influence of purchasing power parity in public policies, from my experience, from what I've seen, basically what Sophia is saying, I think is correct. It's not a general. I mean, you're not gonna go on TV and spend 5 minutes explaining what purchasing power parity is. It's it's not gonna be a straightforward concept for the general population. So I would say that yeah, it serves the purpose of comparisons. And sorry, Sophia, to be repeating what you said, but that's actually that is also my answer. Is it serves the purpose of comparisons. We've heard many comparisons, and we'll still hear them. These comparisons with the growth rate of Portugal compared to the growth rate of the Baltic countries, and that and some of them have overtaken us with regards to GDP growth, and so we hear a lot about those comments, and they're usually based on real GDP comparisons, although I think most of the time they're not being done based on PPP adjustments. They're being done on just constant prices logic. I'm not sure, but I think it's what's usually being done. But either way, those PPPs are also a measure of real GDP in a sense, and so you still hear those comparisons. So I would say that whenever PPPs are included in these comparisons, they are underneath, so you don't actually talk about them. They're implicit in what the message ends up being. So that's that.
Thank you, Pedro. The question arose because Portuguese public life is rife with Portuguese comparing themselves to other countries, with economic results, with tourism results, with everything, football results, everything. We keep comparing ourselves to other countries. So question was more like, why is this indicator used as a comparison metric? So both of you just answered that. So that was the reason for the question. I have another question for Marco, which is, Marco, do you think that the World Bank would be wise to invest in more training and communication in how to use the outcomes of this model and the benefits of these studies for countries in general, for the countries that it's studying? So more training in communication to implement the information of this study and its conclusions?
Yes. So again, I'm really excited about this topic and the discussion we are having. So it's very good points you're making. So yes, so the World Bank is currently so we have an e-learning course on PPPs and price level indices and everything that comes out of this comparison. But still, I feel it's a little bit too much, and it's towards to the participants in this chat, but perhaps it's not enough to get an actual attraction from the people. So yeah, I think we would need to do more to get attraction of the general public. So at least in Finland, whenever Eurostat comes with the price level comparisons, they are attractive in the sense that Finland is a very expensive country, and when they come with the price levels for food or something like that, they always start, rightly so, saying that how come the food prices are so expensive in Finland? Is it the transport costs? Is it the cost that relate to maintaining all the food items in the grocery store? What is the reasons? What is the reason for these costs? So I think the general public could take more use of these results in a way of questioning if the market is actually, again, following the economic theory here, is the market really functioning in a way it should be? Like, if we have two countries that are bordering, like Spain and Portugal, and it so happens that the I don't know, the yeah, what could be example, but still, let's say that some random item costs twice in Portugal than in Spain. Why is the case? Is it that there is only one importer that brings that to Spain, to Portugal, or is there some taxation or something else that is happening? What brings that cost up? And again, the rule of one price was referred earlier. So in ideal world, you would have only one price. There's no need to have triple or five-fold price for same item, assuming that you are not having any costs related to bringing that item to your country. So definitely, I think the way to kind of lure the discussion to the public discourse would be the price levels, because at least in Finland, where I'm from, the prices are quite attractive. So whenever you say that, oh my God, the Finland it's so expensive, and why is this happening? It's normally gets people's attraction. And if there really is something that the market is not acting on, or if there is really, to say, one importer and who is just like asking ridiculous prices because he's the only importer for that good, then that could benefit to get the prices lower in order to increase the welfare of the country in question. And then one question for the GDP versus like I understand that when you take these measures of GDP per capita, you're taking everything that is in GDP into account. So again, if you have lots of investment, let's say your army doubles its budget, that's in GDP, and then you just divide that by the number of population, which is not increasing. Then you think that, oh my God, the population is now twice better off because the army increased their expenditures. So that's why the GDP per capita is not the best measure. But I was not sure who is part of this panel today. But obviously you are very well informed. So we are also providing other measures. So we are measuring the actual individual consumption. It takes out those things that army or investment sector would be having, meaning that only the expenditures that the average household in Portugal would be having, how are those expenditures per capita increasing or going down in PPP terms. So we have those measures as well in the ICP publications.
Thank you very much, Marco. We are now moving to asking for some questions from our audience. And if you allow me, I will pose the questions in Portuguese. A primeira seria isto é para quem quiser responder, de quem está a assistir, entre quem está a assistir agora ao debate, que é esta metodologia e este estudo feito e apresentado pelo Marco. Alguém vê aqui alguma alguma relevância para uma aplicação a nível regional, a nível de comparação entre regiões em Portugal. Isto é porque há um tema caro à PASC que nós já falámos, fizemos vários debates sobre variâncias deste tema, que é a questão das assimetrias, e é se um estudo, esta metodologia teria alguma aplicação a nível regional para estudar, para ser uma ferramenta adicional para estudar quais as assimetrias a nível nacional. Se alguém a quem esta pergunta possa parecer relevante e queira responder ou queira pegar no tema, portanto, que se manifeste.
A Sofia está a pedir. Sofia.
Eu estou aqui com... Pronto, enfim, eu não sei se querem que responda em inglês ou continuamos em português.
É melhor em inglês.
Ok.
Que é para o também poder seguir.
Então, Sofia, então se calhar não se importa só de repetir em inglês qual é a pergunta, que é para o Marco perceber também.
Okay, I will try to resume your question, and this is the importance of using PPP for regional to a regional application within a country. And of course, that was exactly my first question to Marco, and I'm completely very keen on that topic because of my current job and functions at the territorial cohesion ministry, and that's something that we lack currently on the statistics. We have broad territorial statistics, not many, but quite a wide range. But we are lacking the measures of price levels. So this is something that the National Statistics Office should deal with in a short period of time. And of course, if the PASC is also willing to support this initiative, yes, that would be very much a very helpful way for measuring inequalities within the country. And in Portugal, we don't have wide cultural differences within the country that would undermine or make difficult applying this methodology. And as I understand, this is it's a very helpful and very powerful methodology to apply within a country. That's exactly, I think, I would take that as the golden point or the golden point of this seminar or webinar.
So now, I'm in my sound. Sorry, I have two devices. Sometimes I'm looking for one that is without sound, and I believe that no one is listening to me. But keeping that question, because I think it's a very strong question. Do you believe that, and also for Marco, and will be also for Pedro, so will be for the three of you, do you believe that to reuse it, we can reuse it, you need to adapt, as you worked before at Banco de Portugal, do you believe that the role that Banco de Portugal should have on that deployment is huge or not so huge? And also linking to Pedro, do you believe that the university, the academy can also play an important role to adapt if needed to be adapted? And Marco, probably it will be, you already explained it, but do you believe that if we adapt this type of methodology, the World Bank can support at the country scale Do we need some customization, or we can use it as it is right now? It's a complicated question, a little piece for each of you. So please feel free to interrupt and to discuss between the three of you.
Can I? Do you guys mind if I go first? It's just because I'll answer my part of the question, but I also want to maybe pose a question to Sophia to just that is the following. So going to my part of the question. In general, obviously, there are excellent people in academia in Portugal from north to south. So if there's ever a need to adapt something like PPPs to regional differences, price differences. I think that will be very, very easy to find, and different solutions will come up. What I wanted to ask you, Sophia, is the following, and it's a genuine question. I see the practical interest of assessing the territorial cohesion, basically, in terms of prices. And the first thing that comes to my mind that might be substantially different in terms of prices is housing. Housing is going to be very different from, the price of housing in Lisbon is obviously going to be very different from somewhere else that is less populated. But for example, things that you can buy at the supermarket, like retail goods, well, I think the prices will be more homogeneous, especially if they're being supplied by the largest retail chains. So what else is there that changes from region to region, like housing? That is, what other things are there that might induce price differences, or are there so few that would render the exercise less useful? Let's put it like that.
Yeah, exactly, Pedro. That's an excellent point of view. But about housing, we have a broad statistical data, actually. Our National Statistics Office gave us housing market prices, rental prices, new and existing house prices. So and by municipalities, so it's a very micro level. So we are quite comfortable with that. With that price cover. But what is lacking? I agree with you that probably we won't see much differences across the country in supermarket. But what I imagine is that the weights of the basket, the consumption basket, are different. That's my intuitively my guess in this topic. So why I was looking for a price level index within the country is to have a perception of different consumption baskets. And I imagine, for instance, cultural goods are quite very much different. The consumption in the capital or districts, capitals, or rural areas. How much you spend in clothes would be completely different if you work in a capital or more service-based cities than in rural areas. And these weights are quite significant and can be quite significant, I guess. That's why we are expecting to have this to complete our readings for territorial cohesion, and besides housing, because housing is quite well described by the National Statistics Office. Yes.
A lot of sense. Thank you.
Marco, I would like to we started with you, and I would like to close with you. A question for you, which is a two-part question. So what's next for you in this? What will be the follow-up of this study? And a second question would be, a study like yours depends on data. You have to have the numbers and you have to have the information. If you had access to what kind of study would you like to have information? So if you could choose any type of data, what study would you do?
So first of all, I feel that I'm trapped. I didn't know all the intel that would be in this panel, which is very positive. So if I would have known all this, I would have made a different kind of presentation. So first of all, surprise, surprise, we are coming up with the guidelines to make this subnational, meaning the within the Portugal price indices. So we are just finalizing guidelines on that topic, which is exactly what this panel was discussing, which is, yeah, it's amazing. So yeah, really great. The second thing is that we are also in touch with the National Statistical Office of Portugal, and I'm wondering if we could incorporate them in discussion as well, because I'm sure they would also be interested of coming up with these price levels within the country. So again, as mentioned, it's mostly driven by housing. Housing is always the driving force, but there might be something else as well. So I'm like, again, being completely honest, I'm not sure where the statistical office of Portugal stands with the regional statistics. So I don't know how much information they have at the moment on the rental prices and the expenditures for Burberry or whatever, choose your brand, clothing versus something else. So I don't know about that right now in Portugal, but definitely this is in the World Bank agenda. And we are coming with guidelines, and we are working with the countries, mainly the National Statistical Offices, to come up with better estimates. So yeah, I think we could go ahead with us connecting with the statistical office and see where the World Bank can help and where the academia, as represented here, or the public sector can come together and come up with something that would benefit the citizens of Portugal.
Okay.
In addition to the Finnish retirees that are also coming to Portugal to enjoy the sun and beach and everything you have in Portugal.
Okay, thank you very much, Marco. Jorge, passava-te a bola agora.
Ok, obrigado, Nuno. Bem, da minha parte, eu mais uma vez era só agradecer ao Pedro, à Sofia e ao Marco. Marco, I would like to a special thank you to you for your availability, also to Sofia and to Pedro. I believe that was a very rich discussion. Hope to have others in the future. And now we'll move to Portuguese, and we'll ask to Americo to close our session. And on my side is everything. Thank you.
Hello. Marco, thank you very much for your presentation. It was excellent and relevant. I am sure we have all learned a lot, and it was improved our knowledge about this issue. Sofia e Pedro, mais uma vez obrigado, especialmente porque o contacto convosco foi feito há muito pouco tempo e vocês tiveram uma ótima disponibilidade em tão pouco tempo para corresponder a este nosso pedido de colaboração com a plataforma, portanto a PASC, Casa da Cidadania, e tenho que vos agradecer imenso por essa vossa participação e de uma maneira tão positiva. E a todos os participantes, muito obrigado por terem estado connosco. Esperamos ter correspondido às vossas expectativas. Muito obrigado mais uma vez. Até breve.
Obrigado. Thank you.
Obrigada. Obrigada a todos.
Obrigado a todos, boa noite.
Deus, boa noite.
Thank you. Bye-bye.